had a lot of tough moments in my bodybuilding career, but this past weekend was probably the hardest moment that I've ever had to face, and the toughest pill that I've ever had to swallow. But with that being said, there's a lot of lessons learned, a lot of data collected. Now, there's been a lot of changes that have happened over the last week, and with that has brought a lot of unknown. But one thing that is known, we have one more show, we have a new guided eye helping us get there, and we're gonna give it all we got. And regardless of whatever the end result of these next handful of weeks are, we're gonna make sure that we go down swinging if that's the case. But first, before we get into the future, let's take a step back and revisit the past week of the hecticness of what was the Pacific USA show in San Diego, where I placed second next to Jonas, who was one hell of a competitor, and just missing that qualification by 1 point. Now, this was my first ever muscle contest show. I flew from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast. I did a show exactly a week prior and then stepped on stage exactly 7 days later. So this was my first ever back-to-back peak weeks. Now, the accumulation of that month was absolutely insane. We did the Chicago Pro just 4 weeks before, and then 2 weeks fast forward, we did Tampa Pro, and then 1 week later, right into San Diego Pro. So again, damn near back-to-back peak weeks. And it's safe to say that your boy's body was tired, but I also believe that we brought our best ever package, at least this season, to the San Diego Pro stage. Now, throughout that week, it was definitely hectic. That's when I had a conversation with my previous coach, and we decided to part ways. And that was 6 days out from the San Diego Pro show. And to be honest, at 6 days out, I didn't know whether or not I was actually going to do the show. Like, if you actually go look at the official roster that came out, I wasn't on the list because I was still undecided. Now, the original plan was to do the peak week myself, to be 100% honest. And for any athlete, who knows, who's only had a coach, their entire career, that can be a little stressful. And I didn't want to add that stress onto what was already a hectic week in itself. Flying from the West Coast, or flying from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, a 6-hour flight, and the time difference, and again, just a lot of variables already being all over the place. So I seek guidance from another coach, a well-known coach, a coach who, again, I'm very thankful, who was willing to take the time with me, digest all of the information from previous preps in such a short amount of time to put our best foot forward for the San Diego Pro Prep. Now, after making that decision to hire a new coach for that selected time period to bring me into the show, I was much more at peace. I was able to focus on being the athlete and not just the coach, which that alone allowed cortisol levels to drop, and again, just focusing on executing the game plan. Now, the game plan was much different than the previous game plans. There was a lot of things that he saw that he wanted to change, and in just 4 days' time, typically in a peak week, that's not something necessarily you want to do, right? You want to control variables, keep things consistent, and again, bring you into the show. Now, I trusted the process, and even though, again, I was a little hesitant, I had a history in the past of trying to almost be the coach, and I just needed to sit there and take a step back and just focus on being the athlete. And I had a lot of questions, there was no question about it, but again, with the calmness of his presence and how he's explained things, I learned so much. In the same breath, gave me a sense of peace that I haven't had in a while. Now, going into the show, I was confident, but in the same breath, with the way the previous shows went, there was a lot of question marks, and those question marks also led to a lot of doubts. So it was like a combination of crazy emotions all over the place. And looking at photos, looking at my physique leading into the show, I was just not 100% mentally there and saying, this is it, this is the look. But when I stepped on stage that Saturday morning, I can definitely say that the physique we brought, compared to Chicago, compared to Tampa, and then on San Diego stage, it was something special. Now, when it comes to actually being on stage, this was hands down the most fun I have ever had, without a doubt. I was going against some dogs, and during the prejudging, it was a battle. Sandy, the head judge, was comparing the first call-outs for 9 minutes and 20 seconds. The longest she has ever compared anybody, the longest of any comparison this season, and there was a good reason for it, because it was a very close battle between not just first and second, but also third and fourth and fifth and sixth. The first call out consisted of 8 people, and it was a battle from the start all the way to the finish. So the first move that they made in the first call outs was moving me closer to the middle, which was just outside the box. So in that time frame, I was between first, second, or third. And then the next move was me again into the middle of the box. Now, I held center the entire prejudging, which gave me a lot of confidence while I was on stage. They were moving around a lot of other people as well. So in my position, I had to hold it, be a statue as I call it, and just stand my ground. And when they called this out again, this time, they only called 2. It was me and Jonas. And again, going into the show, you kind of know who you're battling it out with, right? There's about 4 or 5 people you know who can be in that conversation. So not only in prejudging did they have us out there for 9.5 minutes comparing us, but then they also had me and Jonas one-on-one in front of everybody, battling it out for the 1 and 2 spot. And boy, when I say it was a battle, it was a damn battle. The judges were having a lot of fun judging, but the crowd was having even more fun watching. It was one hell of a entertaining show. A lot of energy was being put out from the stage and again gathered from the fans, and honestly seeing how much we were talking on stage, seeing how much we were battling it out, seeing how much energy we just brought yelling towards the crowd. It was just so electric, and it was one of the most fun I've ever had. And having so much respect for Jonas, it just made it that much better. And we were having a lot of fun, man. It was just a lot of emotions and passion being spewed out on that day, and that translated to probably one of the most entertaining men's physique shows that we've seen in a long time. And I was honored to be a part of it. And once prejudging ended, and I could finally get a second to gather my thoughts and breathe, I realized that I was likely leading at prejudging. And they moved me to center, they held me in center. Just between Jonas and I, and having an unbiased eye, I do believe I had the edge, and I was excited. I was trying to stay calm, I was trying to stay at peace, but in the same breath, I knew that I just had to finish the job and we could earn that Olympia qualification. Now fast forward to finals, and it's a very similar situation. They called first call outs back out, and then they called the final 2 back out. And it was another long battle. And again, you could tell their minds weren't made up. They were rejudging in that very moment. And we gave them something to judge, man, because we both brought one hell of a package. And I will give Jonas tons of credit, because Jonas came back significantly improved between the 6 hours from prejudging to finals. And this man came lights out. There was no question. His physique compared to where he was prejudging was completely different. So when they began to call names out, 5th place, 4th place, 3rd place, and then this one, she stopped. Sandy began to say this was the hardest decision that she made in 3 years. She began to say that this decision was decided by 1 point and had a swing from prejudging to finals. 2nd place, number 31, Alex Toplyn. And in that moment, even in this moment, it was hard. I was confident that we did enough. I'm never too overly confident. I understand bodybuilding shows are very subjective, but that one stung. And I think you can see it on my face a bit. I think you could see it in some of the emotions when they first called my name. But I thought I had it. Truthfully, I thought I had it. But I'm never a sore loser. That battle was one for the ages. And I respect him as an athlete, I respect him as a man, as a business owner. I respect him for who he is as a bodybuilder. And if anybody, I'd rather it be him. So it was tough, man. Even in this moment, like I say now, if people ask me, do you think that you won the show? Like, do you think you deserve it? Truthfully, I do. I think I won the Pacific USA Championships, but the judges didn't. And that's all that matters. You know, I'm never going to be one of those people who sit here and say the judges were wrong. You know, they point fingers. That is not who I am. That's not, you know, and at the end of the day, I wasn't undeniable. And I also know that I wasn't at my all-time best. So taking all that into account, I know I can be better. And the reality is, when I am better, I'll be lights out. It won't be a 1 point difference. It'll be an undeniable difference. So, the question is, what's next? So after the show, there's still a lot of gray area. I did not do the Texas Pro a week after. I needed to try to clear up a lot of the craziness that was going on and the undecided factors in my life. I decided to stick with the coach who brought me into that show. And right now, our main focus is give this season a final go. 1 to 2 more shows. And then from there, we're gonna see where things wrap up and put together a game plan, whether it's for the Olympia or the 2024 season. Now, I cannot be blind to the fact that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in order to maximize physique. But that's the exciting part. So I'm excited to take that on and really focus on being undeniable for the future. But I still believe there's a lot left in the tank for this season. So at the time that I'm recording this video, I'm currently 2.5 weeks out from stepping on stage at the Sasquatch show here in Washington, and where I'll be going against number 5 in the world, plus some amazing competitors. And the reason why I'm doing this show is because I have an opportunity to prove myself once again, next to a big name, next to an opportunity to truly show the world that I can be one of the best. And I'm not scared of competition. So, I'll see you guys there. And then after that show, we have a lot of decisions to make. But for now, we are focused on bringing our best in 2.5 weeks, with the goal and the focus of earning an Olympia qualification.